Jeopardy! Contestant Nick Cascone had a smooth-sailing win on Wednesday's episode, -1 bumpy back-and-forth with Ken Jennings. The Jeopardy! Host waffled on whether he was correct on a tricky clue before finally making up his mind. After some seriously intense past-player matchups, the first semi-finals of the latest leg of the Champions Wildcard Tournament was a no contest. In Double Jeopardy, Nick, an orthopedic physician assistant originally from Queens, New York, was on a tear. He selected the last clue on the board, the $2,000 clue under the category Belgium. Ken, 49, read, "In World War I, the Second Battle of this Western Belgian city saw some of the earliest use of deadly poison gas." Nick responded with what sounded like, "What is, eeps?" Not saying it right. "Erps," he attempted a second time as Ken did not interrupt him. "Ypres," Nick said as a third guess, which was the correct answer. "Ypres," he said once more in the same way to confirm that was what he was going with. Ken hesitated to rule and cut him off by saying, "You're not saying it right." Nick threw up his hands and said, "I don't speak Belgian or Walloon." Ken explained as it was a tongue-twister word, the S is silent, and the R is kind of silent. "You got there eventually." "We will give you credit for Ypres," the host decided. Nick wiped his brow, being given the $2,000 to have $23,000 by Final Jeopardy! Deanna Bolio, a community outreach supervisor from Campbell, California, had $3,000, and Kit Sokolsky, a freelance graphic designer from Kent, Ohio, had $1,200. Bit surprised they gave him credit. Even though Nick had a runaway, or insured win, whether or not he was deemed correct, fans discussed the odd moment on Reddit. One person wrote, "Awesome job by Nick, but a bit surprised they gave him credit." Another fan agreed, "Great job by Nick. Would be curious to see how they would have ruled the last clue had the game been closer." A third wrote, "If you don't speak the language, then just pronounce all the letters in the word or name phonetically, no matter how goofy it sounds." Nick could have said Ypres and would have immediately been given credit. Nick chimed into the internet thread and joked, "I was about to spell it." According to Jeopardy! Rules, responses have to be phonetically correct to be deemed right, so it was a rare moment to see the GOAT Ken unsure what to do. Final Jeopardy! Fail under pressure. Final Jeopardy! Under musicians read, an Esquire profile said, "The most distinguishing thing about the face of this singer are his eyes, clear blue and alert." Only Kit was correct with Frank Sinatra, as both Nick and Deanna wrote David Bowie. Nick bet around $0 to advance to the specials finals while fans took to the internet yet again stunned that the clue wasn't a triple get. One Redditor wrote, "I'm surprised at their wrong FJ answers. I thought it was pretty well known that the person they chose has two different color eyes. I even texted my BF asking if I was crazy for thinking that was a wild wrong guess." Another fan agreed, also very surprised only one person got FJ right. "I thought it was a gimme." A third wrote, David Bowie was heterochromatic. Both of his eyes were blue, but his permanently dilated eye appeared black. A fourth wrote, "Final Jeopardy! Was a give, for us older PPL LOL. Champions Wildcard consists of past players from Season 37 or Season 38 getting a second shot at glory. There will be 4 winners by the time it ends on December 18th. The lengthy new to Season 40 tournament saw the upbeat Emily Sands clinching the second crown on November 8th. She joined Matt Sock, who won the first group, in earning $100,000, and going on to the next Tournament of Champions. After its third winner prevails on November 28th, the slate will be wiped clean for one more round. Jeopardy! Has relied on placeholder programming given Hollywood since resolved strikes, dividing fans and contestants who want new contestants back. Once Champions Wildcard ends, Jeopardy! Will finally get into the tournaments they wanted the big Season 40 to start with. There will be a second chance tournament for last year's most snubbed non-winners, a Champions Wildcard for the best brief winners of last year, and finally the actual Tournament of Champions. Then there will be the Jeopardy! Invitational Tournament, which will be a precursor to Jeopardy! Masters. All of these tournaments have left fans a bit overwhelmed as regular episodes with new contestants won't be back until April 2024. One fan recently wrote on X, "I'm all championed out, people. #Jeopardy." Another wrote, "I like the wild card and second chance stuff, but it feels like we haven't had a regular episode of Jeopardy in a year." At that point, returning champion Lucas Partridge, who won the last non-tournament game in July 2023, will return as theoretically, will a still missing mayim bialik after nearly a year off. In the world of Jeopardy, where precision and quick thinking are key, every ruling by the host can tip the scales of the game. The atmosphere in the studio was thick with anticipation as returning champion Nick Cascone eyed the board. The final round was near, and the stakes couldn't be higher. As always, Ken Jennings, the seasoned host who knows the game inside and out, stood at his podium with the cool demeanor that has become his trademark. But today, something unexpected was brewing, a moment that would soon become a hot topic among fans. Nick Cascone, who had won the previous 3 games with impressive ease, was facing his most challenging competition yet. His nerves were visible, a rare sight for the usually composed player. His 2 challengers, a school teacher named Lisa and a software engineer named Mark, were formidable opponents, quick on the buzzer and sharp with their responses. The 3 had been neck and neck throughout the game, with no one player able to dominate the board. With just a few minutes left on the clock, the final Jeopardy round loomed, and every clue counted. As the camera panned across the contestants, Nick took a deep breath and selected a $2,000 clue under the Shakespearean villains category. Ken read the clue aloud with his usual clarity. This character's betrayal of the king in Macbeth ultimately leads to his own downfall and death. The room fell silent as Nick hit the buzzer. "Who is, Macduff?" he said hesitantly. Ken paused, the tension hanging in the air for a fraction of a second. "No, that's not correct," he said, though his tone held a hint of something unusual, a subtle, almost imperceptible leniency that the audience noticed immediately. The camera shifted to Lisa, who was poised to respond. But before she could buzz in, Ken did something unexpected. "Nick, let's give you another shot," Ken said, his voice calm but firm. "I think you know this one." The audience murmured, and Nick, slightly taken aback, blinked at Ken, clearly puzzled by the leniency. "Who is Banquo?" he ventured, still unsure.